Right, welcome everyone. Thanks a million for taking the time out of your lunch break today to join us for our webinar, The Stories Numbers Tell. My name is Michael Shiel. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Smurfit Executive Development here at UCD Smurfit. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Professor John McCallig, our Programme Director for our Diploma in Business Finance here at Smurfit Executive Development. And thanks a million, John, for taking the time out of your day as well to join us. And just before I hand it over to John, just a very quick piece of housekeeping. So the webinar chat box is on. If you'd like to ask John a question at any stage, you can just pop it in the chat box there. And we're going to leave some time at the end for a Q&A, and I'll just put those questions to John as they come in. So please do feel free to ask any questions as we go. Right, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to yourself, John.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks a million. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking time to come to this webinar. As Michael said, I'm the director of this program, the Diploma in Business Finance, which is a program for executives who want to develop further their financial and accounting skills. And it's, I think I've been director now for 3 or 4 years of this program. It's a great program. We have a lot of alumni who are very happy with how they develop their skills on that program, and we're quite proud of it. So today what I'm going to do is, I suppose I should introduce myself first. I've been an academic here in UCD for many years. This is my 32nd year. In UCD, I teach undergraduates, I teach postgraduates. Mainly I teach financial analysis now, and things like AI and blockchains to some of our students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe give you a taster of the kind of material you might expect to see on the program, and how we deal with that kind of material. So if you don't mind now, I'm going to share some slides, and we'll start on the main agenda. Okay, so the slides are okay, Michael? Yeah.
Yep, all good.
So this is entitled "The Stories Numbers Tell." This is a quote that I misquote from Oscar Wilde in relation to accountants. An accountant is somebody who knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. So I suppose most of you are probably from the more operational side of businesses, and the accountants and finance people are probably a little bit alien in the way that they think about things, and the way that they think about decisions, and the way that they, put you under pressure for various pieces of information that you might think are quite obscure. Apologies about the noise there. What we do in this program is we try to bring you into that world to a small amount, and explain to you what is going on. And from our point of view, accounting and financial numbers are just a very imperfect reflection of what's going on inside a business. There's lots of measurement issues. There's lots of things that accounting and finance finds hard to capture. But if you look at those numbers and you have a little bit of understanding, you can get an idea of what the business's story is. Most people in business need to know how the numbers are telling their story, either further up the in their own organization, or to the outside world. And this is a very important skill, and we do try and develop that in the program. And also, business people need to get behind the numbers to understand your investors' expectations. How are investors rating the company? And many people we've had on the program have been a little bit surprised when we talk about how companies are valued. the way investors, focus on certain issues, and they start to understand better why the accountants within the company are, so fixated on some of the metrics that they are fixated on. So you need to understand your investors' expectations, your competitors' strategies, and performance, and your customers' finances. We had a student or participant on the program a couple of years ago who worked for a distributor of machines in Ireland, and when he came on the program and he learned more about how to evaluate accounting numbers in reports, he realized that the supplier to his company was actually not strategically interested in that business anymore, and eventually they were going to move out of it because it didn't provide the financial return for them. So that gave him a very interesting piece of information about, his suppliers' strategic goals through the lens of looking at their finances. So somebody asked Warren Buffett a question at one of his seminars about how should they learn accounting? Was there a book he could recommend? And what Warren Buffett said is, I think you learn more accounting in terms of reading good business articles that deal with accounting issues, accounting scandals, that sort of thing. And this is kind of the approach we take on this program. A lot of it is to do with, analyzing real business situations with a financial lens. We do have to teach some principles, and he went on to say, investors really need to know is how the figures are put together and the underlying principles of accounting. So we do have to teach some of that, but most of the material on the program is live material, real life material that we try and analyze through class discussion and through the more theoretical material. And class discussion is a really important part of our program. I think it's probably the most important part that all of you, all of the participants on the program gain a huge amount from discussing these issues with their peers and comparing, how things are done in their company and the issues and problems that they might have. So I guess this is on to the little taster that I thought I would do today. And this is in relation to Ford, the motor company. I thought I would do this. They recently announced their Q2 results, and I took an interest in them. And also, I think it's a good general company. Everybody knows what they do and the basic strategic issues that are around motor companies at the moment. So have a look here. This is kind of the headline that Ford themselves have put out on this quarterly release. Ford on track for 24 profitability, raises cash flow outlook, Ford Pro strength, quality gains, hybrid growth highlights. So they are quite optimistic about what they think is happening. They report a second quarter revenue of 47.8 billion and a net income of 1.8 billion. And these are the kind of measures that you would learn on the program to distinguish between them. What is EBIT? What is EBITDA? Those kind of things. Ford Pro. Ford Pro is actually their trucks and delivery vans and transit vans and things like that. Was very strong this year, a high margin on a 9% revenue gain. So their sales are up and their margin is good as well. Ford Blue hybrid sales up 34%. Ford Blue is their kind of consumer vehicles division, trucks, pickup trucks, cars, SUVs, all of that. And their hybrid sales are up 34%, nearly 9%. And expectations for full year are good, according to them. So I guess what we would do on the program then is we would, using a little bit of accounting knowledge, would pick further here to see what the real story is. What is the story behind these results? And you can get a lot of information from financial reports with just a little bit of accounting knowledge. And in fact, the main thing is just not to be intimidated by them, to be able to jump in there and do that analysis. So all of this comes from the link that was on that last slide, which is just Ford Investor Relations. You can see they have a number of divisions here. Sorry, I'll just start. I'll just use a laser pointer here. They have a number of divisions, as I said. Ford Blue is their consumer division. Ford Model E, that's the electric division. And Ford Pro, that's the trucks and delivery vehicles. These numbers up here, these are the volumes of vehicles. So you can see immediately here, electric vehicles, very small volume. 26,000 vehicles. That's basically nothing for Ford. These results here are quarterly as well, so they're just for 3 months. Revenue from their consumer division, $26.7 billion, increased 7% year on year. But then we look down here and we see their EBIT. This is a measure of profitability, earnings before interest and taxes. 1.1 billion, and that's down 1.1 billion from last year. So for a car company now, we wouldn't be expecting, them to have their profitability in the course of a year. We would expect some kind of stable profits there. So there must be something going on here that we need to look at further. And they have a 4.4% margin. They were boasting earlier on about the 15% margin for their Ford Pro division, a 4.4% margin, and the margin is just, your profit divided by your revenue, so your profit over your sales. They're only making $4 for every $100 of sales in this division, whereas in this division, they're making $15 for every $100 of sales. Another interesting thing here, look, from the division is, from the divisional results, the profitability here is in brackets for the Ford Model E. They are losing 1.1 billion a quarter on electric vehicles. And if you just let that sink in for a minute, that's a lot of money to be losing on making 26,000 vehicles. So just by digging a little bit into the financial reports, we can get some information. But even more interesting than that, that sparks a lot of questions about strategy for a company like Ford. Should they be continuing with electric vehicles? And I guess this is a concern for every car company. They're losing money hand over fist at the moment, but if they discontinue those vehicles, electric vehicles, then maybe down the road they'll be way behind and find it hard to make up. So I guess these are the kind of things we would discuss in class on the program, and we would explain all these measures. People would know what these measures are. And we would then try and relate them to the business strategy of the business that we're talking about, and try and construct the story here. And the story is not what we maybe saw on Ford's highlights, which were highly selective. The story is losing a lot of money on electric vehicles. Profitability is way down on the consumer division, and the only bright spot are their professional delivery vehicles and lorries and trucks. And then we get a little hint here as to what was going on with the consumer division. Profitability was affected by an increase in warranty reserves, though efforts to lift the quality of new products are starting to pay off. Okay, so maybe that's what's going on. And if we look in more detail at the Ford Blue segment, this is the consumer vehicles. You can see here the profitability is down from 2.3 billion to 1.1 billion, down by 1.1 billion. And down here, there's a little note. The lower earnings were primarily driven by higher warranty costs and higher material costs. So warranties are a big part of the story. The fact that Ford's production quality is not what it should be, and they are having to do costly repairs on a lot of their vehicles, is driving some of these results. So that's a business issue. That's an operational issue that the products are having to go back and have further work done on them because of warranty problems. But it's turning into numbers here. It's turning into something that you can measure and quantify. Here's here's one of my favorite things here. I'm an accountant, so I let the head determine what's going on here rather than the heart. There's no kind of visions of driving through the countryside in a cabriolet Alfa Romeo. I'm going to go for something that has high reliability, and Ford is number 17 here. And this is another number. This is numbers collected from consumers, and it's telling you that what is it? 8.6% of Ford vehicles need to go back in an initial time period for further warranty work, and that's then turning into cost, and Ford are having to that's reducing their profitability of that division. And I suppose we would go a little bit further then in the program, and with a few accounting principles, we would be able to explain much better what's happening to warranties. I won't go through this, but this is the warranties note. You need to know a little bit about how accounting works to really get a handle on what's happening here. Accountants use a system called accruals to try and smooth performance over time and make sure that everything is recorded in the right period. And when a car is sold by Ford, we have to estimate whether that car will come back for warranty work, and that will cause cost. And that cost will go into this kind of bucket here, which is a liability on the balance sheet. And even worse than what we've seen so far, we see changes in accrual related to pre-existing warranties, 982 or 1.4 billion. This is where Ford, sold the car, 2 years ago, and are having to provide further money for warranties than they did when the car was originally sold. So this is even a bigger problem in terms of quality. Okay, so I mean, that was just a little taster of the kind of analysis we do. What do? We introduce you to the basic principles of accounting and finance. We explain them in as easy to understand way as possible. We relate them to real business situations, that we're not into, textbook type of situations. And what can that achieve? Well, hopefully, after completing this program, even after doing some of the modules, you would be able to participate fully in financial discussions. And many of the students on the program tell me, after one or two modules, they have a sit down with their CFO and have a discussion about how things work that they've never been clear on before. How is their inventory valued? How does revenue get recorded for the sales? When do their expenses come in? How does cash collection from customers work? Why is it so important? All these kind of issues that go across the more operational side of business and the financial side of business. Develop your confidence in using financial measures and data. So with a little bit of knowledge, you can become a lot more confident in the way that you participate in discussions. And we've had everybody on the program from, board level down who has felt that their confidence has grown greatly from what we do in the program. And then understand the firm's financial strategy and interaction with its environment. So it's interesting to a lot of business people who work in the more operational side of the business. What do investors care about? Why are they, on what terms will they give finance to the company, and what determines those terms? And those are very interesting questions. And as you move further up the organization, everything becomes driven by the firm stakeholders and their interest in what's going on. Okay, so I think I've probably said enough. I hope that hasn't been too much of a brain dump there on Ford. And I'll stop sharing the screen now if anyone has any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Thanks a million. And yeah, hope nobody on the webinar works for Ford. Apologies if you do. Yeah, thanks a million, John. Just one kind of a quick question from myself, just as you touched on it in the start of the webinar. If people were looking to further their knowledge in business finance, this program is specifically for people from a non-finance background. Do you expect to have any people from a finance background actually on the program, or is it very much specifically for non-finance backgrounds?
It is really specifically for non-finance. We occasionally have people from a finance background that come on the program for various reasons, but the vast majority of people are from a non-finance background, which makes for a good atmosphere as well, because everybody is trying to get a grip on all these concepts together. And it makes for good discussions and collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. And just as you mentioned there, just with the atmosphere and stuff, just in relation to the workshops that are physically here in Smurfit campus, can you just give us an idea of what those workshops kind of look like? Would they be lecture based, or you mentioned discussion was a big part of it as well? Maybe if you could just give us an insight into that.
Well, what generally happens, I mean, my module is the first module on the program, and what will generally happen is that I will introduce some material and maybe explain some concepts like we saw there in the Ford example, something called EBIT, which is earnings before interest and taxes. So we'll go through some of the language, explain some of the concepts, and then we will apply those to particular examples through kind of mini case studies, or just what runs through the 2 days that I do with the students is each group has a set of financial statements from a particular company, and they analyze various things about the company, liquidity or their amount of debt and things like that as the day goes on. So it's all there's a small amount of theory and then a large amount of application and practical work.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks a million, John. And yeah, so we're going to just finish it up there. So again, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time just to give us that taste or an insight into what the program is actually about. And yeah, thanks a million. And just for the people on the call, thanks a million for joining. There will be a recording of this that will be sent out after as well. As John mentioned in his presentation, we do have a diploma in business finance starting here on November 14th. This is very much just a taster session, and we'd love to discuss in more detail, particularly around the workload of a diploma like this and if it might be beneficial to you. So it'd be great if we could keep in touch after this as well. Yeah, so thanks a million, and thank you, John.
Not at all, delighted. Thanks, and thanks to everybody for attending. I hope you got something out of it.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. We'll let you guys enjoy your lunch break, and I'm sure you'll be back to work soon. Thank you.
Bye.